Welcome to the Career Wanderlust podcast, your compass for new career horizons. Today, we are talking with Kendall Sadler, an accomplished communications professional with a strength in the financial industry. Kendall started her career as an executive assistant before moving her way into the communications field. Kendall is now the director of communications with a thriving company, Remitly, and I'm really excited to learn more. Kendall, thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast.
Oh, yeah, it's such an honor. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I would love if you could share with us what you feel has been some of your most important or favorite career advice and why.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down. I think I've received an incredible amount of advice from so many people throughout my career. The things that stick out to me, I think the first thing would be, and I actually have gotten this advice from a few different people throughout my career, but they've kind of approached it from a slightly different angle. I did spend some time in the workforce solutions industry, and the advice that I got at that time from a manager that I had was hire people who you expect to someday be your and on a similar theme, my first manager at Remitly really encourages hiring people who really complement your skill set, because we obviously can't be good at all of the things.
Mhm.
And the reason that I appreciate this advice so much, I think, especially when folks are kind of coming up in their career and they're trying to make a name for themselves, it can be really intimidating to hire talent that might outshine you. But the
Right.
reality, there's two things that I think are important. One is that by hiring people who could potentially someday be your boss, or who have skill sets that are different but complementary to yours, you can learn so much from other people. And
Mhm.
so I think it's always important to not think of things necessarily in a hierarchy, but to really understand and stay open to what can I learn from anyone at any level, any job title, and really surround yourself with people who can teach you something. And then, the other thing is, as you evolve into a people manager, it can be hard to kind of shift your mindset from being graded on your outputs, the accomplishments, the
Mm.
tasks that you do, shifting from that mindset to really being evaluated on the performance and strength of your team. And so I think when you have bright shining stars on your team, it really reflects on you as a people manager and a leader. And so I
Yes.
think that's one of the pieces of advice that really stand out to me. I have others. There's one other that I'd love to share, time permitting, but
Yeah, I would love to hear it. But really quick, I just want to say this is a fantastic piece of advice. It is so spot on because look, there are I can as a recruiter, I've come into this. Okay. I can tell you that this definitely happens a lot. And people do get nervous about hiring someone that could potentially pass them. But I 100% believe that your advice is incredibly correct and helpful and will only expand not only the person's career themselves, but
yeah.
like you said, their team, the
Hmm.
company, the culture,
Yeah.
everything elevates when you hire above rather than being scared or hiring with fear that you need to have this person below. So I applaud this. And if people could take this advice and run with it, I think we'll all be seeing much more elevated work situations and work cultures, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm curious, now have you used this advice yourself and how did it work out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a team member today. When I interviewed her, I mean, you already kind of mentioned my sort of indirect or non-linear path to communications. I did not go to school for PR. I have a finance degree. I worked in customer service and executive operations and all of these other fields before I ever even got to communications or to PR. And so one of the individuals that I hired on my team, she has potentially more years of traditional PR experience than I do. And I was blown away in my interview with her that she was bringing so much of this to the table. Additionally, she came from a much larger company with more product lines. And so she had been through navigated situations that I haven't navigated as a
Right.
communications professional, new product launches, things like that. And so it was a bit intimidating to say, let's bring this person on. They might outshine me in terms of
Mhm.
PR credibility or these experiences at bigger tech companies. But at the end of the day, we're able to complement each other so well. She
Mhm.
brings an experience that I'm lacking, but I bring several other
Mhm.
things to the table,
Yes.
including tenure at the company and a lot of institutional knowledge and relationships. And so it's worked out really well and
Mhm.
have a wonderful working relationship. And I think to your point about culture, I think that's what's so important is if you can create this culture of I can learn from anyone,
Right.
really empower people on your team and make them feel valued, and that results in stronger outcomes.
Absolutely. It just sounds like the 2 of you kept making each other better, which is
Yeah,
that's the goal, right? That's what
yeah,
we're looking
absolutely.
for. Now, you mentioned that there was another piece of advice though that you'd love to share. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. So the other piece of advice that really stands out to me over my career, and I mean, who do I credit it to? I could credit it to my first manager at Remitly. I could credit it to flight attendants. But the advice is actually this concept of putting on your air mask before you help someone else
Right.
put on theirs. And I think the reason that this stands out to me, I'll give you a specific story. So Remitly went public in 2021, and for 6+ years, I had just been sprinting. And I think one
Mhm.
of the common themes that I've noticed within the tech industry is that we tend to hire folks who are high achievers, who are very driven,
Mhm.
and who will at times kind of work themselves to the bone, right? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
it can result in complete burnout. And so for me, getting to the end of, the IPO and the end of being at the company for 6.5 years, something like that, I hit a wall and I was
Mm.
burnt out. And I thought the only option was to take a year and do nothing. And so I
Yeah.
went to my leader at the time and I said, listen, I am burnt out. I don't think I can do this anymore. I need to take time off. And his encouragement to me was, like, don't take a year, but let's figure out what it is that is going to get you healthy. And he consistently encouraged me, you need to be taking care of yourself. You need to
Mhm.
identify those things that really bring you energy, that really fill your tank. Because if you're not doing those things, it doesn't matter how many hours you work for the company, your outputs aren't going to be as strong as if you're taking care of yourself. And so I did end up taking some time off, and before I, jumped back in, I actually sat down and drew out this quadrant. And I wanted to make sure that I was thinking about what are the commitments that I would be making to myself coming back into the role? What is the support that I needed from my husband and my family?
Yeah.
What are the permissions that I felt like I needed from the company in order to create this balance and have these boundaries? And then finally, what are the things that I need to say no to at work to allow myself to prioritize the things that weren't in my
So
control and wouldn't
good.
have the greatest business impact? And so built out a quadrant, talked to all of the people who impacted those areas of my life and got some alignment. And I'm happy to say that today I am able to create really strong balance. I'm not perfect at it, absolutely not. But I think the intentionality was really meaningful and really understanding that I need to know what fills me up and energizes
Mhm.
me, prioritize that, build that into my day. It
Yes.
may result in fewer working hours, but it ends up giving back more to the company and to my family and to myself than working 24 hours a day. So
Absolutely. You set it up so that you are thriving in the very best way, not only for yourself with work, but in life. And this is the goal that we are all working towards. I love this story so much. It is an example of how it is the best practice to go about when you hit that wall, okay? You're absolutely right. I mean, we hit this wall, this burnout mode, and when you hit that burnout mode, let's be honest, you're not always thinking clearly, right? I mean, which is why you're like, I need a year. I just need I need a year. And I love that that you went and talked to your boss. I mean, right there, it's like there were so many little pieces of advice within this story of advice, right? Like you went and you were honest with your boss and you had this conversation with them, you talked to them, and you gave them the opportunity to work it out with you, which I
Mhm.
love. So, and I love that your boss did that because I figure, you know what, two things happen when you do that, right? If you take the chance and you share what's going on with yourself, with your boss, they're either going to a hear you and work with you to make it better, or they're not, and then you know
And then you
that
know.
you're yeah, and then you can use that information to make your decisions. So, but either way, that's a win. So I love that. And then the fact that you made the quadrant, I mean, this is something that everyone should take away. I want everyone to hear this because what you did is you created, I mean, there's so many different words for it, quadrant, life book, vision, you figured out what it is that you wanted and what you needed from all
Mhm.
aspects of your career and your life for support, and you went out and asked for it. And but the clarity, going and sitting down and getting that clarity is one of those universal truths in life that you can't be truly successful until you are really clear on what it is that you want and need.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that. And I hope everyone heard this and takes this advice and runs with it, to be honest with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
I mean, when you came back, what was it like for you? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was at peace, to be honest.
Mhm.
I had set boundaries for myself, and I brought myself to this comfort of, I know that this is what I need, and if this isn't right for the business, that's okay. That doesn't say anything about me, that doesn't say anything about the business, it just says there's a misalignment, and that means there's another opportunity that's right. And so because I'd come to peace with this idea that I am going to give this everything that I can within these boundaries, yeah, it was just a sense of peace. And so I think I to this day, and so this has been probably, I don't know, a year and a half or so that I've been doing this, and I've been able to really stick to these boundaries. And it turns out the story that I was telling myself before I took the time off and before I did the quadrant, the story I was telling myself is, if I back off, if I don't give as much as I'm giving today, I'm gonna get fired. There's
Mhm.
not gonna be a place for me at this company,
Mhm.
and it was a fear. I was
Mhm.
working as a result of fear, and so what I did when I came back and I just said, "I'm gonna stick to these boundaries and see what happens," I'm thriving.
Yes.
I'm doing so much more and having so much more business impact, and I'm at so much more peace and so much healthier than I was beforehand, and so, yeah, it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Boundaries are really healthy. Boundaries are a wonderful thing for all of us. It's not only great for you, it's great for the other people too, because then we all know what lines that we need to work within. I think it's a great thing. So I mean, this was a great story. I mean, is there another story that you could share? Is there like I think learning from other people's lessons just makes a really big impact and allows us to maybe not make some of the same mistakes. So sometimes just hearing other people's stories, it can help us grow. So I'm curious, have you had any other impactful lessons or events that happened in your work that you really learned from and you felt like someone else might benefit from too?
Yeah, definitely. And it's always hard to choose because, like I said, when you've kind of been working for a couple of decades, you look back and you're like, I've been surrounded by such amazing people. I've learned so much from everyone. So it's hard to pick just one. I think, though, what I would focus on, and I actually haven't talked very openly about this, maybe confided in a few people on the topic, but what I would call out is in a prior role, prior company, I had a manager who ended up, I don't know the right language to use, but making a pass at me and speaking to me inappropriately in that way. And I in that role, I had felt so proud of my work. I had what I thought I had earned a promotion. I had gained a lot of respect from colleagues. I felt so good. And, this is coming from someone I've had imposter syndrome for as far back as I can remember.
Most
But
have.
yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, as someone who's constantly working on this, I felt like I'd come such a long way.
Right.
And then I ended up in this situation where this happened. And suddenly it was like a snowball of questioning, did I earn that promotion? Am I actually good at my
Mhm.
job? Like, and it really it devastated me, and it really kind of brought me back to all of the self-doubt. And so I was speaking to an executive in another role, and we were having a pretty vulnerable conversation, and I was sharing that I had been through this experience and that I was still kind of recovering and trying to like believe that I had something meaningful to offer.
Yeah.
And because in my mind I thought, you know what if everything that I've done has been because someone liked me, some because I have one of my skills that I am now proud of but used to feel insecure about is I do have a pretty easy time connecting with people. I can
Mhm.
connect with people and understand people pretty well. But to me that seemed like this soft squishy skill that really wasn't super valuable. And so I took that situation and said, oh, I think like maybe that's why I ended up where I ended up and why I was recognized, not for my work, but because someone liked me or I was likable or
Yeah, and just I just wanna break in because I that's a superpower, being able to connect with people and I'm sure that that did help you grow, not that that's what it was, but because that is a superpower, and that is absolutely impactful to most positions.
yeah,
So so I say yay to that, and very that actually probably helped benefit you in so many ways. But go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, that's exactly right. And so this conversation I was mentioning that I had this pretty vulnerable conversation that I was having with an executive kind of sharing this story, he looked at in my eyes and said, that pisses me off. It
Yes,
pisses
thank
me off
God.
because it's not true
Mhm.
that you don't belong in the room or that you
Yes.
don't deserve a seat at the table. It's not true. And it really made me sit and reflect. And I realized like a lot of the insecurity comes from maybe I can't keep up with all of these technical conversations. I'm not an engineer. I'm not, I don't have an MBA, and a lot of the people that I work with do. All of these insecurities about, well, maybe I don't deserve to be in this room. And I really paused and I said, no, but I have exactly what you were saying, Jolie. Like, I have this skill of being
Yes.
able to connect with people.
Mhm.
And as invaluable as I've made myself believe that that is, it's actually really valuable. Not everyone has that. And so the lesson that I learned is, and maybe this is a very simple lesson, but it took me going through this to get here, but everyone has a superpower that is differentiated from everyone else.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be everyone else. You're the only
No.
you that there is. And so if you can lean into that, then you can add value and contribute in a very unique way, as soft as the skill may
Yes.
seem,
Yes. Oh, I love it. It gave me little chills. I love it so much. This is such an important message. It is 100% true. And I love this conversation and the imposter syndrome. Look, because most people do experience imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And it's not always talked about. And I think the biggest non-truth in an imposter syndrome situation is that the negative talk that you are accepting internally and thinking that it's right.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's absolutely not right. It's just normal, and that's the secret. Imposter syndrome is normal. We all
Yes.
have it. Those thoughts come in because we have been, naturally programmed that way. I mean, really, our brains are naturally programmed that way. You actually have to actively work at reprogramming your brain in a different way. So just realizing that and being like, "Oh, normal, not right,"
Yeah.
and then moving forward anyway is kind of the key here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And it's
so
really amazing when you start being open with other people about your feelings, your imposter syndrome.
mhm.
You will find every person, like you said, everyone experiences this, but nobody really, I shouldn't say no one, but I think increasingly people are talking about it. But a lot of times people keep it to themselves because
Yeah,
it just outs you even more if
right.
you talk about it openly. And so I think normalizing it and really talking about it and learning from how others deal with it and have overcome some of those feelings and actively managed it like you talked about,
Mhm.
I think it's such a win if we can all start talking about it more.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a game changer when I realized that the majority of people out there were just faking it till they made it, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
it was just like, wow. So it's not just me
Yeah.
that's not getting things. It's that I was letting those thoughts get in my way and stop me.
Yes,
No
exactly.
longer. Yes. So thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. Now, Remitly is a really interesting company. Could you tell us a little bit more about Remitly? What do they do well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with, we're a fintech company based in Seattle. Core product is a remittance product. So the customers that we serve typically have a need to send money cross border. So perhaps they've moved a from their home country to a new country pursuing economic opportunity so that they can send money back
Great.
home to their family and loved ones to support them financially in that way. Um, and our vision is much larger than just a remittance product. We want to be able to serve customers financial lives more holistically, so there's a lot of opportunity ahead. And I think what we do well, honestly, is culture. I think what's
Mm,
really interesting about the company is, a lot of companies talk about culture and they might say that they do culture really well. And you might get into the company and realize, wow, that was just a lot of words. Like, I don't notice anything different about this culture. I believe that culture is alive and well at Remitly, and it really starts from the top. So when our co founders started the company, before they did anything else, they really sat down and they whiteboarded, and they didn't say, like, what are we going to build? Any of that. They said, how are we going to approach our work? What is the type of environment that we want to work in? What would make us excited to show up to work every day? And they really like whiteboarded out what are our values. And they've taken a very unique approach, I think, to values. And because it matters so much from the very top, it really is infused into the day to day. And so, what do we do well? One, caring so deeply about our customers, and
mhm.
two, really being committed to having a culture that gets things done and that prioritizes customer and people.
Amazing. I love the company mission. I think it's fantastic. And I'm curious because there's a lot of people out there that I'm sure are looking to make a leap, right, from what they're doing. And you've done so. And I'm curious if there's anything that you found really helped you make the leap from one position from executive assistant into moving into a different role, communications.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of two things. One, if you are interviewing at a company or if you're considering a new job opportunity, really understand who you are going to be reporting to. Who is your manager? You need to look for someone who is invested in your career growth and development and really sees you.
Mhm.
So, my manager, before I made the shift from kind of executive operations into formally into communications, it was really my manager who said, "Oh, wow, I noticed that you have this strength. Let's explore that more." It wasn't
That's
me
awesome.
identifying it.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. And if there were more people like that in the world
Right.
would be a better place. But
Seriously.
yeah, and I think the other thing is just like stay curious, stay open. If you have the luxury of being at a company where they're supportive of you kind of reaching outside of your formal scope and taking on different projects, really look for opportunities. So, even though I was hired to support our executive team, I was able to really lean into drafting communication. So from the very beginning, I was doing internal communications off the side of my desk. And so I continued to grow in that area because the need, as the business grew, that need continued to grow. And it got to a tipping point where it was like, I can't do both jobs. So where do you want me? Do you want me to continue doing this or do you want me to do communications? And so I was able to shift into that communications role. And I had another leader who oversaw PR at the time who said, "You're going into communications anyway. We have a gap in PR. Do you want to take on PR as well?" And so it was maybe right place, right time. But my advice to people is really look for managers who are going to support your career
Yeah.
growth, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty in something that you've never done before, that just take every opportunity that you can to learn and lean in and try new things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this has been a fantastic conversation. I mean, before you go, I'd love to know if there's anything, just because I believe in feeding the mind proactively in the best way possible. So
Yes.
if there's any content that you've either read, watched, or listened to that had a positive impact on you that you think could help others, is there something that you would share?
I totally agree with you. I think feeding the mind is so important. I would always encourage people to use, reading as a form of escape as well, to let your mind
Yes.
rest and just
100%.
enjoy
Yes.
something totally different. But in terms of things that I find are so meaningful and applicable to my life, one a book that I recently read that I would recommend to anyone who is looking to improve themselves or improve their lives is The Chimp Paradox. It's by Professor Steve Peters. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay,
Tell me
so
more.
it's basically he does a beautiful job of making neuroscience and psychology very accessible to anyone. Oh, it's brilliant. And he really kind of takes it down to, and he admits he's oversimplified things, but you
Mhm.
have to when you're speaking to like such a broad audience
Yes.
and you want to resonate with so many people. But he breaks it down where he explains the human mind in three parts, and he calls them the chimp, the human, and the machine. And the idea is, if you were to sit down with a blank piece of paper and think about who it is that you want to be, and who are you, what do you want to be,
Yes.
and write that down on a piece of paper, and put aside any like societal influence, like
Yes.
pressures you feel like you have to be.
Fantasy. Full fantasy. Yes.
Who are you? Who
Yeah.
do you want to be? And his what he believes is that is who you truly are.
Mhm.
And the reason that you might not live in alignment with that 100% of the time is because you have these other parts of your brain, the chimp and the machine,
Yes.
that are controlling you. And you need to get in control of those parts of your brain so that you can live in closer alignment to who you really want to be and who you actually are. So that one blew my mind. It
Love.
truly was a game changer for me.
I
So,
completely believe in this, by the way. 100%. I believe everything that you just said there,
yeah, it was such a
personally.
good perspective, and it was all rooted in science. So I
Mhm.
absolutely love that one. And then the other one, I'll just mention one more. It's one that I'm actually reading currently, and it's called Indistractable, and it's by Nir Ayal. Have you heard of this one?
I actually, took his class.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes.
So
Very, very it
for
was share. Please share. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think for me, I one of the things that I've identified in my own life, and something that I've been kind of obsessed with for several years now, is I realized that my inability to focus has caused me so much grief. And
Mhm.
I won't go into the whole backstory of it because it would take too long, but I think I came to the realization, and this is my own belief, but I believe that so much of anxiety and depression that exists in the world today is because people don't know how to focus. They've lost the
Mhm.
ability to focus. And so I eat up any content that I can find that helps me learn more about this idea and helps me learn how to kind of reprogram my mind,
Right.
how to focus, how to have that control. And so Indistractable, I think, is a really great book that really helps you understand what are the triggers that cause you to be that are leading to distraction. Why are we choosing to be distracted? What are we
Mhm.
trying to like, what kind of comfort are we trying to bring to ourselves by
Mhm.
distracting ourselves? So anyway, I certainly encourage that one as well.
Really, I mean, the information is incredibly valuable to improving your life and improving your productivity and overall of all things. Because I completely agree with you as well. I think we have lost our focus in a very big way, and it leads to angst, if you will, in different ways.
Yes,
So,
exactly right.
well, I mean, I'm definitely reading that Chimp book. Indestructible, I highly suggest as well. I mean, I've put a lot of those into use in my own life as well, and it's been incredibly beneficial. So, really great suggestions. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Kendall, I love this conversation. Thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast. If you find value in learning from others, give us a like and subscribe. If you're looking to grow your communications, marketing, public relations, or sales and biz dev team with the best talent and quickly, check us out at paradigmstaffing.com and submit a request. We are wishing you a most successful and fulfilling career. Until next time.